John.
It's the Elvis Presley of puzzle setters.
Where's James?
My husband is missing. I can't access his office. In fact, the only person that can is James. Or somebody who looks remarkably like him.
I'm impersonating a police officer.
Oh, yes, but he's your brother.
That's really not the legal loophole you think it is.
And welcome to the Senior Detectives Podcast, a cozy corner to talk about mysteries of all kinds. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Hannah. Today we'll be covering Ludwig, a 2024 British television series created by Mark Brotherhood. IMDb summarizes, while seeking to unravel the mystery of his twin brother's disappearance, reclusive puzzle designer John Ludwig Taylor takes on his twin brother James's identity as DCI on Cambridge's major crime squad.
Yeah, it's new. It's very short. It's kind of like a mini series, although they definitely left it open-ended for another series or season.
Yeah.
But it's only 6 episodes long, which is very bite-sized, which I appreciated.
Yeah, I love a good bite-sized TV show. I mean, they're long episodes. I think they're around an hour, but yeah, only 6, which is it's good.
And it's got the quintessential charming British comedy and coziness.
Right. It's set in Cambridge. It just looks like small town England. It has a certain charm to it in itself. And I went into this being familiar with David Mitchell already.
Oh, really? Okay. From what?
I mean, he's a pretty popular British comedian, and he's been, I think he's been in other comedy shows. I haven't watched any of those comedy shows, but I'm familiar with him from the British game shows like QI and 8 out of 10 Cats and stuff. And he does the Big Fat Quiz of the Years sometimes.
So he's like a comedian,
yeah.
Well known. Okay, I didn't realize that. I wonder, because I know the girl who plays Holly, what's her name?
Sophie Willan.
Yes, she's also a comedian, which I recognized from Taskmaster. It's the whole cast, comedy-filled people.
Those two and the woman who plays Lucy, Anna Maxwell Martin.
Right. Okay.
Are the only 3 that I went into this familiar with.
Okay. It's not like a comedy. I mean, it is comedic, but it's also serious.
Right. I think, it's just because his character is put in so many uncomfortable situations.
Right.
I wouldn't call it a sitcom, but he's just a very distinctly awkward, uncomfortable, introverted person. And so the comedy comes from that a lot of times.
Yeah.
But it's a show that has, I think, a lot more heart than it lets on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know what I would classify it as, though, because it's not a drama either.
No.
It's kind of its own little niche genre. It's a mystery show, I think, is ultimately what I would call it.
A very satisfying mystery show, because they always get their man at the end, and in very fun ways.
Yes.
So, jump in?
Yeah, let's go.
Cool. So, John Taylor is our main character's name. That's David Mitchell. He lives in a flat in London, right?
I would think so. Yeah. I don't know if they specify, but I think so.
And he creates puzzles for a living under the pseudonym Ludwig. So the opening shot is of him creating puzzles. It's very cool and cute. Yes. And what a dream job if you've got the brain for it.
Man, the way I watched the show and was like, I am in the wrong field. I just want to create puzzles and do puzzles for a living. Yeah. Dang. How do you even get
it's never too late.
Something like that? How do you even break into this field?
I don't know. I don't know. It seems like he makes his own puzzle books, and then maybe he also gets his work in newspapers. I'm not really sure where he makes his money, but he definitely has published a book.
Yeah, a whole series of Ludwig puzzle books and seems to be all different kinds of puzzles.
Yeah.
From right away, like as soon as you're introduced to him, you're told that he's a very like meticulous,
Yeah. Introverted.
majorly introverted person.
Socially awkward. Yeah, he gets a call from a woman named Lucy who is like, I've known you your whole life. I know that the only way I can get you to meet with me is if I order you a cab and it's at your house right now. So get in it and come over.
Get in and come to me. Yeah. Which is so valid, man. I like if I was in my house on a normal evening and someone just wanted me to up and come to them. I mean, I would obviously if it was like family and somebody needed me, but like the way that would stress me out so much. And he gets so stressed out by this. He's a very relatable character for me. But yeah, he goes to meet her and it turns out it's his sister-in-law. Her name's Lucy. She's played by Anna Maxwell Martin, which if you're familiar with our episode on the Bletchley Circle, she was in that show.
That's where she's from. I knew her, but I didn't know what from. Oh, yeah, Bletchley Circle. Yes. Amazing show. Also, go watch that.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, I love Bletchley Circle. And she's great in that too. And she's fantastic in this.
Yeah.
And she is married to his twin brother, James, who apparently has gone missing.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have a teenage son named Henry, who's played by Dylan Hughes.
I enjoy Henry the entire season. He's he's cool for a teenager.
Yeah. You never know what you're going to get with a teenage character, but
right.
He's, I loved him.
Yeah. Yeah. Delightful. Yeah. So she says that the last case that James was working, he basically changed his entire personality. Like he would come home, shut himself in, wouldn't talk to them. And then 3 nights ago, he just didn't come home at all. And she received a letter from him, which is wild. It was instructing her to send in his letter of resignation to work, take their son Henry, and bounce. And if anyone from the department contacts her, don't talk to them and don't believe them. And she said no.
Her character was so hard for me to put my finger on the whole season.
Yeah.
I'm still a little suspicious of her.
My boyfriend was too. And I don't get the suspicious vibe. I don't know that I really liked her character though.
I just can't get a read on her. So she very clearly like grew up with these twin brothers. They were very close as kids and she ended up marrying James. But the whole season you kind of get this vibe that she's also kind of in love with John. Like that there's something there. I don't know if it's necessarily romantic from her, but she's very, very fond of him at the very least.
John even alludes to it too, like it was James' destiny to marry you, or like it was easier for James, he had you, or they allude to something that happened between the two of them being maybe the reason they didn't get together.
Yeah.
In which case, why did you marry his twin brother?
Yeah, I don't know. It's strange. And his brother James is meant to be, the outgoing one, the people person. And so maybe it just ended up that the more extroverted brother was the one who had the gumption to like ask her out. And that's how they ended up together. And she always sort of maybe wished it was John. I don't know.
And they remained like besties, kind of.
Kind of. And it's, I just can't get my finger on the pulse of their relationship and where I think they stand.
I want it to be platonic. I want it to be friendship. She's very much in love with James. James is very much in love with her. I don't like the extra drama of that because I think it could only end badly. That would be so messy and terrible.
They're twin brothers. Yeah, I also hope for it to be platonic, but she just, it could just be that she's the type of person who handles situations like this very differently, but she wasn't reacting to the situation of her husband being missing all season in a way that I felt like she was really worried, or I don't know. Like she seems worried, but like
she's
know.
convinced he's alive the whole time.
Right.
So I don't think she's worried about that, because she said she's got this gut instinct that he's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But he still left. So like, if it was me, I would probably be really scared. And she's not the type to be scared, I guess. I mean, she doesn't take her son and go, which I probably would if it was like police, like he felt the need to run, you know?
Right. Something corrupt is going on, and you don't necessarily know how high up it goes.
Right.
So it's a little spooky. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's just an interesting character. I really struggled and continue to struggle with like how I can't read her very well at all.
Yeah. I think I like everyone else. I think they did an amazing job with every other character. But she kept frustrating me throughout the whole show. She's basically the only one. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. We'll get to that.
We'll get
she
to
definitely
it.
does some things. So she basically takes charge of the situation and forces John to come help her look into what happened to James, and kind of manipulates him into impersonating his twin brother at his job. Which
is probably what, like a felony? I don't know how the legal system works in Cambridge, but
I mean,
it's bad, probably.
It's one thing to impersonate your twin brother at their job if it's just a whatever job, but he's a chief inspector. The legality of all of that is really bad.
Which they are aware of. They do mention it, but they still do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Yeah. So when he gets to the office the next day after she's like prepped him, he just immediately gets pulled away by B.I. Russell Carter, who's played by Dippo, Ola.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not who he was expecting to be his partner. So Lucy said that James's partner was a man named Matt Neville, but she didn't know that he had switched partners since then. So this man is his new partner, and he wasn't ready for that.
Not ready at all.
And they immediately go to the crime scene of a murder.
Right. Yeah. His plan is to just go into the station, be as nonchalant as possible, and sneak into his brother's office and like look some stuff up on his computer and then come back. But he gets whisked off to a crime scene.
Just immediately.
Which, the stress.
I know.
I can like feel it.
I will say it's kind of interesting that nobody's like, where you been for 3 days? Or, you know, because I guess it's clear that nobody knew that he had left or disappeared or whatever.
Right.
But
according to
3 days.
His job, people don't think anything is amiss.
Yeah. Which I feel like the people that caused him to leave would know.
Yeah. It makes me wonder if he told them he'd be out for a few days, like sick or something, or just made some sort. I mean, he did a lot of prep work.
He did, clearly.
To leave.
Yeah.
So
true. It's not really important.
So we see this crime scene, and it takes place in like a big multi-story office building. Man, I love the way the show lays out the crime scenes because it lays them out like a puzzle.
Yeah.
And I love it so much.
Which is fun because then he can solve it like a puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I did want to mention, so most of the episodes open with the crime taking place, and then it goes to the theme song. The theme song is so cool.
It's so good.
The sequence, he's like a shadow man, like walking through puzzles.
Living in a little puzzle world. Yes. It's so good.
Yeah. It's cool.
The delight, because I don't think you see the opening theme for the first episode, but at the beginning of the second episode it plays, and I was like, oh, I love this.
Yeah.
This is so good. So you see this murder happen, or basically the crime scene is established by panning up the windows of this office building really slowly.
Like Only Murders in the Building style, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you see all these people walking around and doing stuff, and you get to the top floor and there's a executive in his office talking on the phone, and then we slowly pan back down, and we got like halfway back down the building, and I was like, that man is dead. He's gonna be dead when we go back up there, huh? As soon as we pan back up. And
he was.
Sure enough, he's just dead in his office. So
and John has a very human reaction to seeing a dead body for the first time.
He sure does.
He's got to keep his shit together because he's supposed to be used to that.
Yeah, so that's where a lot of the comedy in this comes from, is him just dealing with these situations he is not at all equipped to be handling or doing, and his discomfort, and ultimately him like overcoming and getting really comfortable in those scenes also lends itself to comedy as well, I think, toward the end when he's much more comfortable with murder cases.
And his team just kind of coming to accept his quirkiness and like his inability to be a normal cop because he's so brilliant at like solving these things. They just stop caring, which is fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we meet his team here. So we already met Carter, but then there's also DC Simon Evans, who's just like this little like nerdy, nervous, cute little boy.
Right. Yeah, this actor is very familiar to me, and I didn't look him up like for what I know him from, but I know this man's face.
Jaron Howell?
Yeah, maybe Jaron. Yeah, he just is one of those faces, those British like kind of bit part actor faces that I recognize so quickly.
I think he's my favorite.
I love him. I love both of these characters, honestly.
Yeah, and they're really good together. It's like your Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of the show. So he's countered by D.S. Alice Finch, who's like, her whole thing is being very ambitious. Like she really, really, really wants to do great at the job, to excel, to move up the ladder, etc. And so the dichotomy of those two characters is very fun to witness.
Right. Yes. He's such a like eager to please type, and she is so by the book and rigid, and it's very fun to watch them interact.
Yeah.
They're kind of always trying to like one up each other or solve it before the other one can figure it out. Or, you know, it's fun. It's a good dynamic.
Yeah. So John has witnessed a crime scene, and he's like, I don't think I can do this.
I'm out.
I really want to go home. So he like goes outside. He's on the phone to Lucy, and he's like, please let me go home. I can't do this. This isn't for me. But he's like looking over the case notes as he's on the phone with her. And he said, this is a bit awkward. I think I just solved a murder.
I know. The whole time we were watching the first episode, Kendall and I were saying, at what point is he going to realize it's a puzzle to solve and be like, oh, I'm actually very into this. And this is that moment. Yeah, he realizes that it's basically a logic puzzle.
Do you know the name of it? You said it's one of your favorites.
They're called zebra puzzles or Einstein puzzles. It's a type of logic puzzle where you're basically given a list of true statements and you have to make a grid and mark those true statements off, and then basically process of elimination, or like get rid of the impossibilities. So like if this is true, this can't be true, and you have to mark those off. And they're fun, really good grid puzzles. And he literally makes a giant grid puzzle on a whiteboard and like solves the murder that way by determining who could be in the building, where, at what time, and like who even had the like possibility of doing this murder. And it's so good.
And I will say, the most unrealistic part, but the most satisfying part, is that every time he solves it, he just like looks at the person who's responsible and then they confess.
Yeah, he doesn't have to do the Sherlock of like, it was you.
Yeah.
He explains how it could possibly have been done and then waits for them to.
Yeah.
Like, for example, in this first one, he basically just assigns all of the suspects like A, B, C, D, E, F. And so at the end, when he's done solving the puzzle, they're like, okay, so who was it? And he was like, it's
B.
clearly B.
They're like, who's B?
Who is that? And he's like, well, I don't know. Let's find out.
And then it's Helen so-and-so. And then she starts crying and she's like, I didn't mean to. And they're all like, what the fuck?
it's done so satisfying. It harkens back to the days of the serial detective shows that I really enjoy, where you get a nice little wrapped up story and case
in one
with each episode. But then there's like this big overarching mystery of like what happened to his brother, where is he, what's going on, and how does it tie in with everything else. And it's great. It's so good.
So that's the structure of the show. It's set up in this first episode. He gets a new case every single episode. He'll be like, okay, I'm just gonna go investigate James, and then he goes into work and they're like, this thing happened, and he's like, I can't not solve the puzzle.
I gotta
do it. Puzzles are meant to be solved.
He gets to a point like midway through where he's so invested in solving the different murders that Lucy has to keep being like, you're meant to be looking into your brother's system. Like, let's stay focused on the task at hand. And he's like,
this is where Lucy really frustrates me. Is because I understand his team not having faith in him because he's just not a traditional cop, and you can tell. But eventually, even they're like, oh, this man's like a genius. Like, we're going to just go along with what he's doing rather than questioning him. But Lucy has known him her entire life. They have a rapport. They're clearly very close. She calls him a genius several times throughout the show. She asked for his help. But she's constantly annoyed with him for like his social inadequacies, for trying to help other people. But then she'll cry about not helping someone. And so it's just like, there's like lots of hypocrisies, and like, she's just like back and forth where she's like, please help me. You're so smart. Why didn't you think to do this? Why aren't you doing this? And it bothered me. It was the one gripe I have about the show.
She's just an interesting dynamic character that I just never understood, truly. Like, she never seemed to be sticking to any one thing. Like, she's like, either put all your faith in John or don't. But I just, the way she kept flipping on him, and then sometimes she'd be doing suspicious stuff, and like, she likes to kind of take matters into her own hands, and she would find a piece of information and just
not share
go look into it. Yeah, not sharing it, I think, was the big thing. It's like,
it's really frustrating.
If we're collectively working on this as a mystery together, you need to be sharing everything that you learn so that I can help you find your husband.
Yeah.
But she routinely keeps things from both her son and John, and I just didn't trust her the whole season.
Yeah.
And I still don't. I still feel like there's something weird with her and her husband's relationship. Like, I don't know if she's unhappy in that marriage,
or he was, or
they kind of allude that like maybe it's there's like marital problems happening. She seems like she really regrets not being with John.
Yeah.
And it made me suspicious of her the whole season.
Yeah. It is pretty weird. I don't know if that's what they were going for. It's like they tried to do that. Like, they even have Henry at one point get mad at her for like just replacing his dad with John. And I'm like, I don't know if that was super earned, because I'm like, is that what they're going for? Or it like they didn't really pick one way or the other, which maybe it's just meant to confuse us.
It could be. I think it's definitely an open-ended story where, I mean, spoilers for the end. It's like, you still don't know necessarily what's going on for sure with his brother. You know more than you did at the beginning, but it's very open-ended for that plot line at the end.
Yeah.
And I want to know what's going on.
I know, me too.
So desperate to know what's going on.
Yeah. I personally, I think most of the show is very feel good. And so I think the reason it bothered me so much was that when she would doubt him, it took away the feel good feelings. And I'm like, I want the whole thing to be feel good.
Yeah, it definitely has dips into some emotional stuff, which I enjoyed those little moments, you know, here and there where the like true emotion and heart was like dabbled in.
Yeah.
I think it did that really well.
Yeah.
We learn that Carter was only transferred 2 weeks ago. And there's a chief constable named Ziegler who comes to speak with. It's hard as an American.
I
with
know.
all of these different British
Like titles.
Titles. They're very different from ours. So there's basically like the chief of police for Cambridge. And then there's like the head of this department.
Mm-hmm.
And so Ziegler is like the chief of police. And then DCS Shaw is basically the one who overlooks like this office, this department.
Both big deals.
And they're both acting shady as hell the whole season.
Whole time.
I was so sure there was upper level corruption with both of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ziegler for sure is acting in particular very shady.
Yeah.
And he seems to be very, very familiar with Carter.
And Carter's like trying to hide it.
Yeah. Being a little bit weird about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it puts suspicion on him pretty early on. But he's such a likable character.
I know.
Who is totally enamored with John that I trusted him, I think, the whole time. I don't like really Watson. Ever believed.
Yeah.
I never believed Carter was up to anything nefarious.
If he was, I would assume that he was coerced and like not knowledgeable of how he's being manipulated.
Sure. Or being blackmailed or just like something that's like he's not doing it out of his own volition. He's being pushed somehow. But
yeah.
No, turns out he's just a good dude.
Yeah. So John finds a notebook of James, which is chock full of puzzles. Like the whole thing is coded. And basically you need a keyword or a phrase or like, you know, a passage to be able to solve it. And so John is like, I can't do this without it. I will continue to keep being him until I find it.
He's in. And that's kind of how the first episode wraps up, with him deciding, I got to keep doing this. I got to solve this notebook and figure out what happened to him. And so then, yeah, that launches you into the rest of the season of him solving 6 different murders.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're going to talk about just kind of the main storyline, like what happened to his brother. I think we decided we're just going to pick like one of the episodes and like talk you through like a case to show you kind of how they laid it out and how clever it is and how awesome.
It's episode 5 of the show. He gets called in to solve a murder at like a preparatory school.
Mm-hmm.
The headmaster has seemingly hung himself in his office.
Yeah.
And you see people discover the body and everything in the morning, like the admin and teachers discover his body. And they're coming in on like a Monday morning after a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good setup. It's like a locked room mystery, basically.
It was locked from the inside. So like, because they get there and immediately John is like, there's grammatical issues in the suicide note. It's a headmaster. Ain't no way.
Mm-hmm.
The scene is like too perfect. Is definitely staged. This was a murder. And everyone's like, okay, he says it's a murder, so it's a murder.
But nobody really understands how it could ever be possible that he was murdered, because it was locked from the inside and you know, like they didn't escape through a window or something. So how did the killer lock the door from outside?
Right.
Make it look like from the inside. So the whole time John is very focused on like doorknobs and how locks work. Because he's like, it has to be. Yes. Yeah. He's so obsessed with that.
Yeah.
It's great. I had the satisfaction of like halfway through this episode, Kendall and I totally called.
Did you?
Yeah. What was going on and how they pulled it off.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just, this was, I think, the other reason this was one of my favorite episodes was one of the teachers at this school, you find out, was an old teacher of John's who taught him and his brother. And like their whole relationship is very cute. And like this man's a bit older now and has some probably like dementia happening. So he kind of is like in and out with how much he remembers John.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end, it's very clear he definitely remembers John, because he basically calls him out and says, why are you pretending to be your brother?
Yeah.
I'm onto you. I know you're not James.
Yeah. but in a very like non-accusatory way. Like he's still looking out for him. Like back in the day, he protected him from bullies. He like introduced him into making puzzles. Like this man was his mentor and they were super fond of each other. So he's not like, you're doing a bad thing, I'm going to report you. He's just like, what's going on, bud?
Yeah, something weird. Why are you pretending to be your brother? I'm sure you have a good reason, but that's a weird thing to be doing.
Yeah.
It's just a very endearing relationship between the two of them.
Yeah.
And the whole, something we haven't mentioned about their whole backstory, the twin brothers, is that their dad left them, just like up and walked away from their family when they were, young teens. I think they were pretty young, and it has really heavily impacted both of them their entire lives. And so John is sort of dealing with all of the feelings of that coming back with his brother up and leaving his family.
Yeah.
I think it's clear that this teacher for him had a big sort of father figure role for him.
And he kind of sees him losing his intelligence a little bit, and it causes him to be like, oh, I never had a family. Like my dad leaving just caused me to go in a little hole and not branch out from it. But I always had my mind. I figure I always will. But now I'm watching my mentor losing his. And so it scares him.
Yeah, kind of jolts him back into appreciating the people in his life that are there.
Yeah.
So I think his relationship with Lucy and Henry by extension and his brother is just that like maybe they see each other once or twice a year for holidays or something, but that they aren't particularly close, at least anymore. And I think he really reevaluates that in this episode, and it's nice to see. I enjoy that.
Yeah.
It's just it's a good episode. I feel like this one is just really well done.
So he actually uses his old teacher, his name is Mr. Todd, to help him solve it, because he's obsessed with the locked door, right? And Mr. Todd is like, the locked door is a false path. When you have puzzles, you start with the solution, you work backwards, and then you layer in false paths. And so then he reframes the situation in his mind and, kind of rethinks the impossible. Well, what could make it possible? The culprit never left.
Never left the office. So good.
Yeah.
Such a good,
I
loved this.
What?
I know. Yeah. Wild. I didn't know who the culprit was necessarily or how they had pulled it off. But as soon as his teacher sort of hinted that you have to figure out what's possible because this is an impossibility, I was like, oh, okay. So it's the locked door he never left. He was in there the whole time.
Yeah.
And it turns out, it was one of the other teachers at the school, the coach.
Terrible reasons. Just, he's awful. Like, this man, I mean, it doesn't really matter, but he's a loathsome character that they set up. Like, he was trying to get one of his players off for smoking weed. He wanted to get his girlfriend in a position of power so that he could fool around with the female students and she wouldn't believe it. And then he proposes to her while he's in the locked room with the man he just murdered.
I forgot about the proposal. I forgot about the video call proposal.
It's so cringy and terrible.
Oh, man. Yeah, he's basically just manipulating everyone in his life for horrible reasons. And murdered the headmaster so that his girlfriend can get promoted and so that he can manipulate her too.
Yeah.
She's at first there's a little bit where you're like, is she in on this? But she's totally just being manipulated by him, and you feel so bad for her.
I mean,
by the end,
I was like, girl, why are you letting this man ain't good for you? What are you doing? But
yeah.
It's, we get swept away sometimes.
It's easy to do.
So he stayed in that room with the corpse for 3 days. And partially why they can confirm that is because he was eating while he was in there. And so he throws like an apple core in the trash can because he's stupid. And it's like hasn't decomposed for 3 days.
Yeah, he planned out this whole thing so meticulously and had a whole pack of food and was like putting all of his trash. And I mean, he was having to go to the bathroom in there.
Yeah.
Where was he putting his waste? Like, he had planned out every little thing. And then the morning, like Monday morning, before they discovered the body that morning, he ate an apple and just threw it in the trash can and waited basically for somebody he hid like behind the door where it opens. And so when someone opened the door, saw a body, he like scooted out whenever the coast was clear and pretended to just also be there discovering the body. And you ding dong, you fucked it up.
Yeah. So the mysteries are really neat. And it's like every episode is something like that. And then he uses his puzzle solving logic to be able to solve it until by the end of the series, he has solved 6 cases, most of which are murders. And it's like a department record and everyone's like convinced he's performing miracles and he ain't even a detective.
Right. In his mind, he really is just solving puzzles. Like I feel like totally disassociates the human on human violence aspect of what he's looking at and like looks at it entirely as data and puzzles. And it's great. It's so fun to watch him figure things out. And they're all unique. Like the setups for these murders and these cases are all really unique and they're all, I think, pretty equally interesting.
Very clever.
And fun to try to figure out while you're watching the episode.
There's one that I just want to mention literally for one line. So they go to this like company retreat. There's a guy up, he's doing like team building with this company. And, you know, he ends up not being involved at all, but like he's up there and he like has little arguments with John about his team building quotes about how they're like inaccurate and etc. Yes. And at the end, he gathers everyone in the room to kind of reveal what happens as traditional detectives on TV do. It's just the thing.
Gotta have that moment.
Love it.
Yeah.
And so they're like, yes, it turns out that it was actually all 3 of the employees that were there that were responsible, minus the guy who was, you know, leading the team building. And they're like, do you have anything to say? And he's like, I think that they worked as a team. And that line killed us. We thought that shit was so funny. It really has some good lines.
There is some genuinely really well-written humor in this show. That one really came full circle in a really satisfying way. Because the whole time, that poor team building leader guy is just like an innocent bystander who's kind of just caught up as one of, you know, a potential suspect just because he was hired on false pretenses to be there. And it's that bullshit team building corporate crap. But the way that he gets to come back around at the end and be like, it seems like.
It seems like. It was so really good.
Yeah. Really enjoyed that too. Yeah.
So that's like the charm of the show for sure. And then we'll finish out the main storyline, which also gets kind of complicated.
For sure.
So Henry, at some point, it might even be in the first episode, he finds the note that James had left for Lucy. And her whole plan was to just like pretend why John is there and not tell him that his dad like literally left them, which hate that plan. So I'm glad he finds out really quickly.
Right. Yeah. And joins in on the work of trying to find his dad.
He does.
Which is fun.
I love it.
Henry's a very good character. He's a very likable kid, very like even-tempered, not your typical reactive teenager, and he's going through something really hard, and it's a perfect storm for a really obnoxious teenage character to be written in, and he's great. He's just a great character.
Yeah.
And he loves John. He really loves John too. Like, he's not holding any ill will towards him for like replacing his dad or anything. He really, you can tell he has a fondness for his uncle. That's very sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. And he loves his mom. I mean, he definitely has more spats with her, but I think she deserves it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he's a good kid.
So yeah, kind of sprinkled throughout all 6 episodes, you get further drips and drops that there's some sort of corruption going on with the upper level police force. So like John's direct team he's working with seem mostly innocent.
They don't know what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah. They're unaware. But Shaw, which is the woman who overheads this department, and Ziegler, the chief, are for sure like just acting so shady the whole time.
Yeah.
Like his former partner, James's former partner, Neville, got transferred and just sort of like left very abruptly. And everybody seems to be pretty okay with that, and not seem to think that was super weird that Neville just kind of up
transferred.
And left too.
Yeah.
But basically it kind of comes out that they've uncovered some corruption, him and James did, in one of the cases that they were working.
Yeah. And they didn't drop it. Like they were told to drop it and they didn't. So action had to be taken. Like, yeah.
It was basically the police were framing somebody for a crime that they did not commit.
Yeah. So James had been the first one on the scene of a murder of a guy named Sinclair, who turns out is a conspiracy theorist that wrote a blog, and he would like write all kinds of shit, but also stuff about the police station. And James put it down as a professional hit, but then they like wiped that report, replaced it with a new report saying it was a burglary gone wrong, and someone like a kid goes down for it.
And yeah, James and Neville basically said, okay, we're not okay with that, and started looking into it. And then apparently Matt Neville basically did what James did and said, I'm out. I'm tapping out, took his family and just like left, put in his resignation. And it's basically did what James did, except that James's family did not go with him.
Right.
Leave.
That's like the difference. Why? Because Neville's family went with him, and like at one point he calls James's phone and is like, why are you back at the police station? What are you doing? Until realizing that it was not James, it was John that answered. But from that phone call, they're able to trace the address where they're staying. And Lucy goes to see them, sees that it's Matt Neville with his family, and they're like, look, we cannot talk to you. We have to go. Like, you could have been followed. They like freak out. But he's got
they're like,
his
oh
family
shit,
with
we're
him.
in hiding. We have to go. Yeah. And I don't know why James couldn't take his family with him.
Yeah.
There's a point in this storyline where John kind of comes to the conclusion that James used this opportunity to just leave his family like his dad did. He kind of comes to the conclusion that I think he was really unhappy in this marriage and just chose to up and leave, and told you guys to up and leave, but didn't take you with him because he wanted to be able to just go off and start a new life.
Yeah. He does.
Which turns out is not what happened, but it's John's trauma kind of
coming back
around.
And I get it, because like at the end of the day, he did leave without trusting them enough to tell them what was going
100%.
on. So, I mean,
it's fair. It's a fair conclusion to come to, because bottom line, that is what he did. It was just his reasons for it were not as poor as John suspected.
Yeah.
He has sort of a low moment with him and Lucy both do, kind of coming to terms with that being a possibility.
So we learn the connection between Ziegler and Carter. So it turns out Carter was engaged to Ziegler's daughter, but she died.
Right.
So,
and Carter, just in case you've forgotten, is his like younger new partner that he's working with.
Yeah. And it was very suspicious at the beginning, like, why are they buds? But they're pretending like they're not. And it was just because he asked Ziegler for a transfer, which is kind of a no-no. because he like used his position as his, soon to be son-in-law to get higher in his career. But really it was just because he could not stay where he was, like surrounded by the memory of her death. So
right.
He like didn't want people to know. But it's very a sad reason. It's not a shady reason.
Yeah, I was very relieved to find this out, that Carter is a good dude. He has a sad backstory.
Yeah.
But ultimately is not corrupt, which was relief.
However, there's a computer technician. Her name is Holly. She's the Sophie Willing character, which I thought was super funny. I was like, oh my gosh. She's not comedic at all. She's very...
Right, yeah. After seeing her on Taskmaster, she's like a very zany person in real life. And this character is so like serious and straight-laced and all business. And she kind of throws John for a loop every time they interact. Like he doesn't know what to do with her. And he thinks she's the most suspicious of him and potentially knows that he's John, not James.
Yeah.
So he spends a lot of time avoiding her, but also needing to talk to her for more information.
Yeah. And at one point, she discovers that he's been accessing classified files from Ziegler's account. He's been like using Ziegler's account information to look at them. And instead of turning him in, she wipes the system for him, which why?
Why would you help him?
That's and then another time she confronts him and is like, are we really going to act like you don't remember that you kissed me at the Christmas party? I was like, wait, what?
Hold on. Yeah. I feel like that moment is what kicks off John thinking, oh, maybe he
James
really did just walk away from his family. Yeah. If he's potentially starting a relationship with this person at work, maybe he did just want to get out. And so I feel like that's what triggers his kind of spiral into doubting his brother.
Mm-hmm.
They come to the realization that she was testing him. The real James would have known that didn't happen and been like, what the fuck are you talking about? And John was just so taken aback, like, he doesn't know if it's true. So that was her testing to see if he's really who he says he is. And he's not.
Yeah.
So
the unfortunate part about that, though, is that Simon overheard that conversation, which I was like, no.
I know, because it's going to come back into play when somebody overhears something like that. It's like, oh, it's going to come back at the worst time.
But I think they did it so well, honestly. I was like worried. I was like, oh man, I really just don't like those kind of plot lines, but they did it really well. So
yeah, they didn't go into the typical melodrama stuff that you would expect to come from something like that.
Yeah.
So episode 6, the final episode, and the final murder that he has to solve opens up with Holly, the computer tech, has been murdered, and we see somebody running away from the crime scene. And as we catch up to that person running away, we realize it's Lucy, covered in blood, holding a bloody knife, running away from Holly's murder scene.
As the cops pull up on her. So, yeah. So Holly had asked Lucy to meet in the middle of the night, like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And she goes because she's like, I have information about James. I thought Holly was going to be on their side. I really did. That was my feeling, was Holly got murdered because she got too close to information and she was going to try to help them. I was wrong.
They do I think they 100% try to make you think that.
Yeah.
For sure. Lucy insists that she did not kill Holly and that actually she arrived immediately after Holly had been stabbed and that she died in her arms as she was trying to like take care of her, which is horrible.
Again, she doesn't really react like a normal person would react to this.
Right. This episode and whole thing did nothing for me trusting her more because she just really seems nonplussed about the whole thing. And like she's aware that it looks really bad for her and she trusts that John will be able to prove that she didn't do it, but she also doesn't seem
emotionally distraught.
flustered at all by any of this.
This woman died in your arms.
I think she's just it makes me wonder if she's kind of maybe neurodivergent in the way that John is.
Yeah.
And that maybe that's why they have such a strong connection, because she is also able to like set aside that emotional side of herself, or potentially like just looks at things in such a rigid, data-driven sort of way that maybe like that's interesting. She's just, I kind of wonder,
because at the end, she's so excited that they get to continue working on James's case in a way that's also kind of weird. And that explanation would make sense. And I think that fits. They don't like explicitly tell you that, or kind of even infer that very much. But
right, like with John's character, they want you to know that right away up front. Like he's neurodivergent and like he just doesn't interact with people in the world in a way that most people do.
Yeah.
And with her character, she's made to seem like she fits right into society in a totally normal way. But she's so emotionally disconnected in this episode. Mm-hmm. And like this all ultimately is in regard to like supposedly the love of her life's like missing persons case.
Yeah.
And there's like a weird disconnect where I just have this feeling that she cares about James and wants him to come back, but is like kind of a little bit, a part of her is okay if he doesn't, and she is able to just replace him with John. Part of me believes there's a little part of her that would be okay with that.
I mean, that's kind of what's happening. He's living in their house. I hope that it does get context in the second season. I hope that they do explain her behavior, because to me, watching it, it felt as though they just didn't write her character very well.
Mm-hmm.
And that there wasn't like a explanation for it. It was just like, oh, they wanted her to seem like a composed woman. And therefore it doesn't track with the situations that she's put in. So I hope that there's more to it than that. I hope you're right.
I hope so too. We've talked about it before on the podcast that some people in real murder cases in real life, a spouse or something of somebody who's been killed may not have the overwhelming grief and emotional response that people expect them to. And then it makes them look so much worse.
Right. That's true.
And more guilty.
Yeah.
And maybe she just is able to compartmentalize that. I don't know. She's just an interesting character.
She is. Yeah. Yeah.
This whole episode, she's very even keeled, and they're kept separate pretty much from each other the whole episode. They won't let her talk to John. Right. Yeah. Obviously.
They think she committed a murder because they talked to Simon, who overheard that conversation with John and Holly. So they think that she killed her because James and Holly were having an affair.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously she can't just like talk to him. Yeah.
Right. And she's so confident that, oh, John will figure this out and get me out of this. Meanwhile, he's expecting like, okay, yeah, I'll get her out of this. And they're like, you can't work on this case.
No, it's a conflict of interest. Like,
it's your wife. Like, we can't let you look at these files. We can't let you like look at the details or the crime scene. Like, you can't be involved here.
And it seems like really for sure that she did it, because like the knife that she claims she just brought along to protect herself comes back as the murder weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's from her house. Yeah, from her house.
Yeah.
So basically that's the puzzle he ends up having to solve, because they, of course, find a way around him not being able to work on the case, and Carter slips him the case files to look over.
Which I think is really cool, because it's like, first we have this, okay, I guess back it up a little bit. John admits his whole deception to Carter. It all comes out. He's like, the jig is up. So he goes into voluntary holding. He's like, he insisted on it to be kept here.
Right. You need to incarcerate me.
Yeah. So now that they know, first of all, Shaw, the big boss of this department, she vows to keep the other three, Carter, Simon, and Alice, safe from the backlash that's going to happen when everybody else finds out that they let a detective who's not a detective work and like solve all these cases for the last month or whatever.
Right. Because in reality, they should be held responsible. They should have noticed.
Yeah. So, but it's very altruistic behavior. And at that moment, I was like, oh, maybe we don't suspect Shaw.
Maybe she's not mean or evil.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I don't think she is. I think she's was in kind of a tight spot because her direct superior it's still acting shady.
Probably.
And she's probably kind of stuck between him and her team. But she does genuinely try to protect her team as much as she can.
It's cool.
From all of this. Yeah.
And then Carter does the same thing. So he's like, Simon and Alice, you guys should head home. Because he's about to break the law. Like, he's about to bend the rules, do something he's not supposed to. And he doesn't want them to go down for it either. So everyone's just like taking the bullet. It's super cute.
It's good. It's that sort of subversion of your expectations where, you think there's going to be this melodrama happening and the show just is like, we're not doing that. We're doing this instead.
Love it.
It's great.
Love it.
I do enjoy it.
Yeah. So he gives the case files to John in his holding cell and just leaves them with him overnight.
And so the big main puzzle of this case that John has to figure out is how the knife that Lucy brought from her house ended up being the weapon that was used to murder Holly that Lucy did not murder her with. Like, Lucy brought the murder weapon to the scene. The murderer used that weapon, and ultimately, like, it was not Lucy, which is a great
it's so cool
setup.
Yeah.
For like how did this happen?
And it's adorable because in the past, John has tried to get everyone involved together at the crime scene again to explain it. But obviously they can't let him back on a crime scene. He never was supposed to be there in the first place. So Simon recreates it in the police department. It's so cute.
It's very cute. So the murder happened in the kitchen. So they like have a bunch of like banker's boxes of paper set up, and they're like, okay, this is the kitchen island, and they're like, just totally recreating this murder scene. It's great. I loved it.
Yeah. And at this point, they know that he's Ludwig. They know that like he's a puzzle setter, and Simon especially is kind of like fangirling at this point. It's really cute.
Right. He keeps saying, oh, like my mom's such a big fan, but he like brings a book for him to sign and stuff. It's very endearing.
Yeah. So the explanation is that the killer was still in the room when Lucy arrived. Obviously, he had just done it. Lucy puts down her knife on a kitchen stool when she saw Holly's body. So like the killer like goes around the island at the same time that Lucy's going around, swaps the knives. So he puts the murder weapon where she had left her knife and puts her knife in the knife block. And then obviously she picks up what she thinks is her knife on the way out, but it is the murder weapon. So, and again, he's like, okay, prove it. And they're just like, I mean, there'll be like fingerprints and stuff. So,
right. Yeah. It's going to show like, why would Lucy's fingerprints be on a random knife in Holly's knife block in her flat?
Yeah. And they don't like, there's like a millimeter of difference of it sticking out of the knife block to prove that it's not the same knife set. It's cool. It's fun.
Yeah. So it turns out Holly's whole plan was she had figured out James was gone and that John was pretending to be James, and she was trying to extort him. And when he showed up and started impersonating his brother, she decided, okay, well, I'm going to blackmail him instead.
Yeah, him and Lucy. So that's why she invited Lucy over. It wasn't to help her. It was to blackmail her, because that was her whole thing, was she would acquire and sell information. And a regular client of hers was Sinclair. So she was also involved in that whole thing.
In the whole framing.
And she
sort of
didn't get murdered because of that, though. She just got murdered because she just like messed with the wrong lackey.
Fucked over the wrong people, basically. Yeah, so everything's kind of wrapping up here as far as like the big secret is out. everybody knows who John is now. And Shaw actually works with him. She creates like a false resignation letter that basically is dated for now, which would show on the books that like James has been here working all of these cases, because all these murder cases he solved,
They would have to reopen them.
They would have to reopen them, and like the due process of law would probably let these killers go free because an actual police investigator was not the one. Yeah, I mean, essentially. So it's not great. I mean, it's also against the law that she helps him out here.
Yeah.
But
his whole team would go down for it. Like,
it would be so bad. So yeah, she ultimately does like ethically the right thing. And they say like, okay, James was working all of those cases and has him sign the resignation letter.
Yeah.
Then, and he officially resigns.
She also lets him in on all that she knows about James's disappearance, because now everyone also knows that he's gone under shady circumstances. So she doesn't know a lot, but she does say that a specialist team came in and took over the Sinclair case when James found that dead body. And the Sinclair guy had so many documents and information that he wasn't supposed to have, like classified information. So that all got packed up and was sent to Scotland Yard, but it never arrived. The van arrived, but it was empty. Another puzzle for another time. And James was supposed to stop investigating, but he didn't. So he saw that amended report. She ordered him to drop it. Obviously, he didn't. And that's as far as she knows.
Right.
So she says. But I think it's legit.
I think she's being genuine here, or at least as genuine as she can safely be at this time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if she knows more and isn't letting it on, I don't feel like she's doing it for nefarious reasons. I feel like she's trying to protect them in some way or something.
Right.
Carter comes to Lucy's house to ask John to basically sign on as like an official consultant for the police department. So he's officially Sherlock status now.
Yeah. He says we don't want to lose the best detective we never had. And I'm like, oh, so cute.
Yeah.
But John gets a voicemail from James. And in this voicemail, James is confessing that he's like their dad. He's like confirming all the suspicions that John had about him. Like, I'm unhappy. I left because of that. Like, nothing else is going on. Please tell Lucy and Henry for me, which if this was legit, what the fuck, bro?
Yeah, this is such a shitty thing to do.
But he calls himself the Bowerbird, which is from this book. It's like it is a bird, I think, in real life that abandons its children, basically. And as he's telling Lucy and Henry about this voicemail and being so tactless, the way he starts
John.
to tell them that his brother abandoned them is so bad.
It's the pure bluntness of a neurodivergent person who just is like, these are the facts. I am relaying them to you because that's what I was told to do, and I'm not gonna spare your feelings at all. He's not doing it maliciously.
No.
I think he genuinely believes it's the best way to like present that information to them.
And I think he's pissed. He's mad at his brother for doing that to his family. And so he's letting that out too when his family is just learning about this for the first time.
Yeah. It's yeah.
But it actually, the word Bowerbird leads them to crack his notebook. It's the code for his notebook.
It was all sort of
a setup.
The whole voicemail was a false lead, basically, just to get him that code word. And so they realized that none of that's true. James did leave for some sort of corrupt upper level issue. So they're back in it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it leads them to a storage locker. And when they open it, it is all of the lost files of Sinclair's. And so John decides that he's going to stay and help them, go through these and see what it was that Sinclair had that made it such a big deal. As they're loading it into the car, James is watching them from behind a chain link fence. Very interesting, but also, what the fuck are they thinking? They're just loading these files into their car, taking them home. Anybody could be watching them, and clearly somebody is, and they don't notice.
They don't notice. Yeah, the way that I would not want to bring anything out of that storage container.
Just go back to the storage
just keep going back to the storage container, or like go back, load some paperwork into something else, like disguise it to load it into your car. But they are just taking big giant file boxes and loading it into their car, and James is just watching them do it, and I'm like, this is bad.
You're gonna get murdered.
It's just so bold of them to assume that nobody's watching them or following them, because you've been sort of led to believe somebody was watching them and following them the whole season. Like, you see someone like staking out
their
front of Lucy's house and stuff, and that ended up being Holly,
right?
Who was aware that James was not, John was not who he said he was, but it's like clearly somebody's able. They didn't notice that either. Like, clearly somebody's been able to follow them and track them.
Yeah.
Without their knowledge. It's just funny that they're both so like tunnel visioned on like, we have a new lead, and they just take off running with it without.
Also, if James is there, why can't he just be like, really quick, hey, I love you guys. I'm sorry I still have to stay away, but you guys got this. No.
I think James clearly understands that they could all be being watched, and like his ex-partner Matt Neville
understands,
got that when Lucy showed up to talk to them. He was like, "Oh, we have to, like, we're in hiding, but we have to move because
you could have been followed.
They probably followed you here." So I think James knows that he can't talk to them in this moment. But if I was James and they were just loading stuff, I would just be like,
guys,
no.
Guy, maybe leave it. Maybe do this.
Be a little more.
I think it was for the shot, but I'm like, not worth it.
It just made me stressed for them. Yeah, I would agree. But yeah, so he is alive and well. That is proven at the end of this episode. We see him alive, and he does look distraught to like not be with his family, and
probably weird for him to see his twin brother with his family.
With his wife, yeah. It's probably strange.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good. It's a very heartwarming little mystery show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That really, I think, hooked me enough on the main story, but also gave me those like the dopamine hits of solving a new murder case every episode.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're clearly going to keep doing that. It ends with John working with his team as a consultant, and he looks like himself again at the end. Like he's not pretending to be his brother anymore. It's so cute.
He's dressing in his little sweater vests and bow ties like he wants to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So highly recommend. Really, my only gripe is Lucy. But maybe there'll be like a kick-ass explanation, and like they'll really write her good next season, so.
It certainly feels like there's just more to her than we understand or can know right now.
Yeah.
I think that's why it's frustrating to watch, because it just feels like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. She makes these decisions that are frustrating to watch, but I think it has to be because like there's something we don't know about her yet, or something else going on there. I have to believe. Because the rest of the writing in the show is so good.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So
yeah.
Well, thanks so much for listening. We are next time going to be reading our first Nancy Drew book.
I can't believe we haven't done that yet.
It's kind of crazy. I mean, I read them a lot as a kid, but I haven't read a Nancy Drew book in, 25 years. So,
right.
Yeah. And I don't know if I ever, and maybe it'll come back to me. I don't know if I ever read Shadow Ranch. But we're going to be covering The Mystery of Shadow Ranch.
Yeah. Probably talking about the game as well, because if you didn't know, that's our namesake. Senior Detectives comes from the Nancy Drew video game series. They're all on YouTube. If you want to go watch them, we played them all.
Yeah. And Shadow Ranch is one of our favorite games. So I'm sure we'll talk about how the story compares and just how the general, I feel like it's more going to be about how the general vibes of the book compare to the general vibes of the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, it should be good. It should be a fun episode. So we'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Just as you take my hand, just as you
Many thanks to Kendall for editing our pod and for our lovely theme songs. You can find his work at lounginglappin.com. Thank you to Cozy Snail Designs for our cozy cover art. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/senior detectives. We are also on Twitter at SNR_detectives, TikTok at SNR Detectives Pod, and on Instagram at Senior Detectives Pod. See you there.
blurring into one.